Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Hello.
Well, happy that you have joined. Good, managed.
Yes. I think Chantal is still trying to join.
Yeah,
My colleague.
that should make it because Miss Amelia also managed to join. Could join,
Good.
yeah, with the link, yeah. So maybe we'll start and then he will join. So, dear Miss Astrid Schomaker, Miss Shushana Sirakanyan, dear colleagues from the Secretariat of Convention on Biological Diversity, dear partners, speakers, and participants, good afternoon from Yerevan, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us today. It is my great pleasure to open this webinar organized by Women in Climate and Energy in partnership with the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Armenia, and the Ministry of Environment of the Republic of Armenia. Today we are coming together to discuss two essential and interconnected topics: gender equality in biodiversity policy and the participation of civil society organizations in the CBD processes. We recognize that achieving the goals of the global biodiversity framework requires a whole of society approach, engaging government, civil society, indigenous people, local communities, the private sector, and interested members of the public. This inclusive approach ensures that all voices are heard and that actions on biodiversity are both effective and equitable. At WiCE, we strongly believe that women's engagement and leadership are vital to driving progress in biodiversity conservation and climate action. Women are often the first to experience the impacts of environmental change, yet they are also among the most effective agents of adaptation, innovation, and community resilience. Creating opportunities for their voices to be heard and their contributions recognized is essential to ensuring that our environmental policies are both equitable and effective. We are deeply grateful to our partners, to the CBD Secretariat, FES Armenia, and the Ministry of Environment for their continued collaboration and commitment to promoting gender equality and inclusive participation in environmental governance. And before moving to the agenda or the presentations, it is my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, delivering opening speech, Ms. Astrid Schomaker, Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Environmental Program.
Okay, so hello everybody. It's really nice to be here, to see some faces on screen, and to know there are more people hiding behind. And hello to my colleague Olivier, who I think is back in Montreal, and other colleagues from Montreal also joining. And it's really great to say hello from Yerevan. As you were saying, it's a fantastic feeling because we're here now for the second time from the Secretariat, and we're witnessing the progress being made, the government working very hard towards making COP17 not just a real thing, but also a very successful COP. So we've been here having the opportunity to engage with many people in the ministries, to see the venue, see it developing, and luckily also to speak to colleagues from civil society, including the NGO with the best acronym ever, WiCE. That's perfect. So thank you to WiCE, the Ministry of Environment, also Friedrich Ebert Stiftung for doing this event and giving us the opportunity to participate in that. For us, I mean, apart from congratulating you, that you are all already on board because the COP is still 1 year away, but we can see here so much mobilization, so much interest. So we're really happy to have you here. We call it the COP. I want to say always it's the COP17, but it's also something we call COP12 and COP6. To say together what is coming here is the UN Biodiversity Conference that looks at the Convention on Biological Diversity, but also two very important protocols it has. One, the Cartagena Protocol, dealing with issues related to biosafety, so with safe trade in modified organisms and how that might impact biological diversity and nature if it's not handled safely, and also the Nagoya Protocol, which deals with the very important issues of how we can be more equitable in the sharing of access and benefits on biodiversity. So there are important discussions that will take place here. And we say in the UN, and I say it's jargon, we talk about whole of government, whole of society. These are things that roll off my tongue very, very fluently, but what it really means is that COPs will be a success, and the implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework will really only be a success if everybody is participating and on board. So that means, first of all, within the governments, yes, environment ministers in the hot seat driving the exercise, supposedly bringing together other ministries under their leadership, and but then also from society, everybody contributing, everybody being affected, of course, by the loss of biodiversity, but also everybody being able to have an impact in terms of changing your own behavior, but also very, very importantly, in terms of asking for action from others and pushing action forward. So to see the strong engagement of Armenian civil society, and it's the second time that I'm meeting in Yerevan, civil society organizations, is fantastic. And before we went online, we had a mini discussion here, and we already heard so many ideas that are being prepared for the COP that is getting actually super exciting, and I hope you will hear a bit more about it later on. And of course, also one topic which concerns at least 4 of the 5 people here in this room is also the role of women in biodiversity. What we can do for biodiversity, also how biodiversity loss affects us maybe differently, and how that needs to be reflected in the overall work. And I'm sure Olivier will speak more to what we're doing. And luckily also this biodiversity conference will also do a first I'm not sure what we call it, midterm review of our gender action plans. We will actually have a good understanding of how far that is going and how we have to move on. And maybe the last thing I want to say, it is an important COP. I mean, of course, in the Secretariat, every COP is important, but in our process, you know that we have action-oriented targets that are to be achieved by 2030. They are directly linked and supporting the SDGs. So achieving our targets will have an important impact on how we move forward on SDGs. We are doing here our first global stocktake at midterm. Framework adopted 22, targets 2030, 26 bang in the middle. So we will have in front of us in the COP a report that colleagues will put together based on national reports. That will give us an idea how far we are moving and how fast in particular, or not fast. And actually, we're moving towards the 2030 deadline. So this COP is about reorienting efforts where necessary. It's about accelerating efforts. It's about getting governments to recommit to these targets and to come forward with new actions. But also, and I want to conclude on that very, very importantly, beyond government, and I come back to the whole of society idea, beyond governments acting, we need others to act as well. Many of you or some of you may have been at COP16, COP de la Gente. So again, the idea, bring other actors to the COP, and yes, for exchanges, but also for concrete commitments. So we would love to have cities coming together and committing to action, municipalities, farmers, the finance sector, the business sector, all of those should come to Cali and say, okay, we realize we've only got 4 years. There's no question of giving up. The only question is doing more, doing better, doing it faster. That's why we're here, and that's what we want to discuss, and we want to leave with new ideas and new motivation in our luggage, so to speak. And all of that will happen against the background of an absolutely beautiful city and a fascinating conference center, which we think will be ready on time and in very, very good conditions, we think. And hence, we're very much looking forward to the event and to working with all of you on it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this insightful speech and the advices. We are very happy that next year COP17 will be here, and very excited with it. Yeah. With the opening speech, I will also present our partner, Ms. Shushana Sirakanyan, representing Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Armenia. Shushana Jan, please welcome with opening speech.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking time and being here, gathering here to discuss really important topics. Thank you, Astrid, for your opening remark and also for finding time in your busy schedule, I'm sure, to join us today, and to your colleagues, Olivier and Chantal, for also joining us and also discussing with us these really important topics that we have here on our agenda. I am Shushana, as Nune introduced. You can hear me, right?
See that we're not all together again.
Yes. Here.
I am Shushana. I work as project manager in Friedrich Ebert Stiftung's Armenia's office. The foundation works in Armenia already 30 years. We recently actually had our 30 years anniversary, and globally we work already 100 years. It's one of the oldest political foundations, German political foundations, and we work all over the world. Our core beliefs and values, if there are people who are just joining us and don't know about our foundation, are freedom, justice, and solidarity, and we are spreading the ideas of social democracy. And of course, major event like COP17 and the preparations to COP17 couldn't bypass us, and we are really eager and interested to be part of the discussions in our society, and also boost some discussions together with our very much valued partners, Women in Climate and Energy NGO, with whom we are working, with Nune and Armen. We are working already 2 years and implementing a project called Building Resilience in Small Communities. The project targets two main communities in Shirak region, Ashot Kamasya, that are located around the Lake Arpi National Park, which is a rare and important biodiversity hub for Armenia. And so basically the project already has biodiversity conservation issues at its core. So when we learned that the COP17 will be held in Armenia, and it's a major event for the country, we discussed within our team that it's really important to boost some very important discussions. Society to have their opinions, share their opinions, and which will eventually help us all to be more prepared to a really effective and high quality, high profile event. Thank you so much again. I don't want to take too much time.
And the Gender Plan of Action recognizes the importance of advancing efforts to achieve gender equality and women and girls' empowerment to ensure the effective implementation of the Curie-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So first thing to note is the Gender Plan of Action is indeed a tool to support the implementation of the framework in relation to gender consideration. And it calls for the full and effective participation and leadership of women in all aspects of the convention processes, particularly in policy and action at national level, which is vital for the implementation. So very quickly, the Gender Plan of Action is structured as followed. It has a purpose, it has some modalities, it has expected outcome objective, a set of indicative actions, possible deliverables, and proposed timeline, and responsible actors. So what I wanted to do very briefly is to just sort of go over some of the outcomes that are sort of embedded in the Gender Plan of Action. We have some proposed objective in outcome 1, which is to increase women and girls' rights to ownership and control over land, ensure equal access for women to resources, services, and technology, ensure gender equitable access in relation to access and benefit sharing, promote women empowerment and entrepreneurial opportunities in biodiversity-based supply chain and sector, and identify and eliminate, prevent, and respond to all forms of gender-based discrimination and violence. So what you can see from this expected outcome 1, you see that it touches upon issues related to finance, ownership of, and control over land, issue of access and benefit sharing. So really it's issues that are mainstreamed in the work of the convention in general. In terms of expected outcome 2, it provides for increased opportunity and strengthen the participation or leadership of women at all levels. enhance the meaningful and effective participation and leadership of women in convention processes, and also the inclusion of gender equality and human rights into the development and update of national biodiversity strategy and action plans. In terms of the expected outcome 3, which is the last one, is the Gender Plan of Action talks about issues of capacity building in terms of also to use gender and biodiversity data, including relevant data disaggregation, strengthen evidence-based with regards to gender consideration, support access to information, and ensure coherent gender-responsive implementation of the framework. So now, just to provide you some information that you have a bit of a background on the Gender Plan of Action as to where we are in terms of the process of the midterm review of the Gender Plan of Action. So COP17, in adopting the Gender Plan of Action, requested the Secretariat to undertake a midterm review of the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action. And the request was to identify progress, lesson learned, and further work to be undertaken for consideration by the subsidiary body on implementation at a meeting to be held before COP17. In this regard, and as this, the gender has been included as an agenda item for SBI 6, in particular in relation to the midterm review, the Secretariat has called for, through a notification, for submissions of views from party, indigenous people, and local communities, and as well as relevant stakeholders. So we received views and submissions from parties and others, and through those views and submissions, we will prepare an in-session document for the consideration of SBI 6, containing recommendations that will be further transmitted for consideration of COP17. So in terms of what is envisaged for the in-session document, we will have, of course, an analysis and synthesis of view received. We also have prepared, as is called for the Gender Plan of Action, some information on the mainstreaming of gender consideration in NBSAPs. Here we'll be providing an overview of sort of how gender has been mainstreamed or integrated, included in NBSAPs, and also reflecting some experiences by parties in terms of mainstreaming gender into NBSAPs. And then we will also have some recommendation in the document based on the lessons learned, challenges, and also identified gaps. As I said, these recommendations will be considered by SBI 6 as part of the midterm review of the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action to be further transmitted to COP17. So as such, COP17 will be a very key moment to take stock of progress made in the implementation of the GPA, and to also define next step and to get guidance from the Conference of the Parties as to what can be done to further support the effective implementation of the Gender Plan of Action. So thank you very much. So with this, I hope you have an overview of what is the Gender Plan of Action, what is expected in terms of next steps with the midterm review. And of course, if there are any questions, happy to answer.
I have Thank you, dear Oliver. Before anyone else comes up, I have a quick question, please. Do you hear me? Yep. The question is related to the synergy between the sister conventions, the CBD and UNFCCC. So as the CBD undertakes this midterm review of its Gender Plan of Action, what kind of mechanisms are being considered to ensure the kind of coherence and complementarity with the UNFCCC's Gender Action Plan? In particular, like regarding the national level reporting, capacity building, and frameworks and the integration of gender indicators into climate biodiversity nexus projects. So that's a kind of quick question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. In fact, that's a very valid question. So in the process of the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action, we've had some activities, some joint activities with the Rio conventions, so the Climate Change Convention, the Desertification Convention, where we've had a series of capacity building workshops, which were aimed at informing our respective parties as to the requirement of each gender plan of action and to see where there's some ways in which synergy could be drawn. So this initiative has been an initiative which has been sort of promoted by the government of Germany, bringing together the 3 secretariats in specific capacity building activities. So we had 2 last year, we had 2 this year. And the last activity focused on actually capacitating countries to understand what is contained in the Gender Plan of Action and what is actually some of the reporting requirements or implementation requirements that are actually cross-cutting, and many of them are cross-cutting. And that helped countries to basically identify where they could sort of draw from each of the convention to sort of provide information in terms of reporting requirements. I must say also that one of this question is very pertinent in that in the Gender Plan of Action, there's a specific call for fostering synergies in the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action of the CBD and other Gender Plan of Action. And what is also clear is that we are not at the same level in terms of, that is the conventions, in terms of the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action. For example, the Desertification Convention has already done its midterm review of its Gender Plan of Action implementation. It has, based on that, taken on other measures to further support the implementation of the Gender Plan of Action. And the Climate Change Convention is also has not yet arrived at what we call a midterm review, but has undertaken activities such as identifying gaps through surveys from their parties. And so this information has also been shared with us. So in terms of synergies, that's what we've been undertaking at the Secretariat level, and we hope that this also will inform the information received. And lastly, through the submissions received, we see that some of the submissions are drawing on experiences in such other processes other than the CBD, in particular with regards to the Climate Change Convention.
Thanks so much. That's very encouraging to see progress on that. Actually, a very quick follow-up question. Like, are there any pilot countries where the CBD and UNFCCC, like gender focal points, are coordinating their work? Like, any examples to cite, like any joint projects between the focal points, if any?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so we've actually, as you would know, we have an ongoing open notification for the nomination of gender focal points and under the CBD. And one of the idea was that once we have this network of gender focal points, that we'll undertake capacity building for them to sort of be cognizant of issues related to the implementation of the framework and the Gender Plan of Action in particular. So we've actually identified a few countries that we work together in common with some of the conventions. For example, Namibia in Africa. We've also had developed countries like in Canada, for example, providing examples of how they are mainstreaming the requirements in terms of the different conventions. And the hope is that as we move further, possibly after the midterm review, we will have more activities bringing the gender focal points together. We have had that idea with regards to making sure that the different gender focal points meet. Not all the conventions have gender focal points to speak, but we were hoping that we will do still an interchange of information. But of course, because of funding constraints, we could not organize that activity, but it's something that we will look into.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Very comprehensive. Thank you. That's all on my side.
Maybe before our participants will raise their questions, another quick question. I'm wondering, to ask vaguely, what's is the main challenge for gender mainstreaming for the what's the like main challenge for the gender action plan? What do you think? Especially if we consider, as you mentioned, that different regions, different countries are not on the same level in terms of participation. What do you think is like the main challenge right now?
So thank you for the question. I think what we've seen through the submissions that we are doing an analysis of right now from parties and others, the issue of capacity building is quite an important issue. Why capacity building? What has come out in terms of the submissions is that there are, even though we have gender focal points at the national level, there's still an issue of capacity building to enhance their knowledge of the technical issues involved in the implementation of the gender plan of action, and actually ways and means to include the consideration of gender in national biodiversity and strategies and action plan, because that's sort of an issue of technical issue of capacity and understanding that needs to be sort of enhanced. We've had some submissions that pointed to issues of limited financial resources to undertake meaningful consultations with the relevant constituency and with decision makers to ensure that the decision makers take this on board and include gender in the broader spectrum of decision making at the national level. And of course, I mean, the financial and capacity sort of constraints often go hand in hand, but definitely what comes out clearly is this issue of sort of technical and sort of capacity to take into account gender consideration. Another sort of also sort of what has been highlighted is of course the issue of complexity and the issue of reporting burden across the different processes and the effective engagement. And this some of the gaps. And what has been noted in a lot of in some submissions is also the fact that in some instances gender is actually sort of included in national plans, but the issue is actually to translate that inclusion into actionable implementation is still a challenge.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Oliver. And I think since we do not have yet any questions from the audience, any other questions, we can proceed to the second speaker. Oh, please.
Maybe before moving to the second speaker, I would like to ask Ms. Amelia Arreguín, who joined us, coordinator of the CBD Women Caucus, to share her experience from the last COP, where she was organizing several events, including Gender Day, but also with the CBD Women Caucus. What is this network, what they are doing, and how women in the sector can join this network. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much also for inviting us. I have a couple of the slides. I will go very quickly through them. I just wanted to have this visual support while sharing. And thank you so much to Olivier for also inviting us to join him in this sharing with colleagues in Armenia. It is our pleasure to be here. Just quickly to share about what the CBD Women's Caucus is. We are the women's major group under the CBD, which is the platform for women and girls around the world to participate directly in the Convention on Biodiversity. And as we exist, there are also other sisters constituencies within the CBD, right? We have the Global Youth Biodiversity Network for the engagement of young people. We have the International Indigenous Forum on Biodiversity for the engagement of indigenous peoples, local communities, as well as the CBD Alliance for the engagement of NGOs. In our case, we are this interface for women organizations and representatives or individuals engaged in gender justice and biodiversity to participate fully in the CBD processes. Our mission is rightly to promote gender justice, but mainly to enable women and girls to advocate directly for their rights in biodiversity-related processes. At the moment, we are a bit more than 800 members, individual members, 300 organizations, and we are in the 120 countries. And yes, I will focus very much in the last COP's experiences, because I would like to highlight that, and perhaps Olivier can support this statement in the regards that this historic achievement that we managed to get in COP15 while the GBF was being adopted, and the insertion of Target 23 was rightly because of the alliance that were developed in between gender advocates within the governments, within the secretariats, but also the huge movement that civil society and women advocates we build around the CBD. So just to share a bit about the process that we undertake for the COPs is that we organize a series of preparatory events, capacity development, information sharing for the women's members and allies. We prepare policy recommendations, discussion papers, policy briefs, evidence and knowledge. We engage during the negotiations, and we also have campaigns and press conferences, engage with media as a way of highlighting the messages and reaching other audiences that are not necessarily really aware about the CBD discussions, but are aware about gender justice. Since COP15, we had this, it officially was the second Gender Day, but it was like one that was fully developed. Also the Women's Hub program, a series of side events, but perhaps what I want also to highlight as one idea that we'd like to see during COP17 was a ministerial breakfast, like a really high-level event where representatives from different ministries under the leadership of Finland and with Canada. We invited key advocates at different stages. So before the negotiations of Target 23 and before the negotiations of Gender Plan of Action, they came together, we strategized together all in the different spaces where we are with the commitment to make COP15 like a truly gender justice COP. And while you are looking into some of the pictures of these events and some of the advocacy and the achievements, in one of the particular pictures you will see Ms. Elizabeth Mrema, like the previous executive secretary of the CBD, that was also one of our biggest champions. Then these initiatives, they even grow because also the impetus and the membership of the Women's Caucus grew, as well as the collaboration with the COP presidency, in this case with Colombia and the CBD Secretariat. We managed to organize a more robust preparatory processes, the analysis and positioning towards all the COP agenda items, women in all the diversity put together their priorities to advocate for their rights, for whatever they consider just and consider that has to be included in the policy processes. And as the main objective of the platform is to support them in bringing their voices forward, we developed a really like intricate strategy that included press conferences, the Women's Pavilion, again, the Women Forum, different scientific briefers, policy briefers, and so on. So what I'm trying to say is that hopefully towards COP17, in alliance with the COPs, the Armenian presidency and with the Secretariat, we can even go, we can maintain this impetus, and we can also perhaps even go beyond organizing all of these different processes. with the main objective, as Olivier highlighted, that is to keep gender at the very core of the negotiations, to keep gender and women's rights in all the policy decisions. And we know that it is important to be in the negotiation space, which we do, but it's not the only arena where we should be advocating. So that's why you see all of these different initiatives. And just the last slide in to share a bit of our roadmap that we are inviting Armenia presidency, and we are already in collaboration with the Secretariat. So the three actors, we can come together to make this roadmap like a reality, like with all the preparations, bringing forward the Armenian women for their participation, full and effective during the previous negotiations. Olivier mentioned the SBI 6 that will happen in Rome next year, but we also have the intersessionals in Nairobi. We hope that we can organize a National Women and Biodiversity Forum around August or September as a pre-COP event, and that during the COP17 we can keep this nice legacy and history of organizing the Gender Day, high-level gender roundtable, the Women's Hub, and so on. And perhaps also just to finish by saying that for us in the Women Caucus, we keep an ongoing engagement. So after the COP, we are also hoping to have a series of closing reflections, particularly with Armenian women, to make sure that the engagement, the experience, the learnings continue to be reflected on, and that we learn from that. And quickly, just to invite everyone that is interested in participating in the CBD processes, and if you are a gender advocate, a women leader, organization working on this intersection, to join this the women's constituency within the CBD. Thank you so much for having us. I will stay here also in case there is any question for us, and happy to collaborate. Thank you again for the space.
Dear Amelia, thank you very much for the very comprehensive presentation. And if we have any follow-up, I think people would type into the chat. And we would certainly be back with a follow-up with you on some of the points of the presentation. And now we would proceed to the next speaker on the topic of participation of civil society organizations in the meetings of the CBD Conference of the Parties. Ms. Chantal Robichaud, Program Officer, Stakeholder Engagement and Cooperation Unit. Dear Ms. Chantal, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Many thanks. Yes, I had a bit of an issue logging in, but I'm here and I'm very happy that I could join you. I did miss a little bit of the previous presentations, and I really apologize for that. I hope I will not be repeating too much information, but otherwise, please let me know. Yes, so to introduce myself briefly, my name is Chantal Robichaud. I work as a associate program management officer in a unit called Stakeholder Engagement and Cooperation in the Division on Implementation Support. I have in particular responsibilities for youth as a youth focal point, and also civil society more generally, and regarding the facilitation of the participation of stakeholders and civil society in the meetings, not only of the COP, but today we might be focusing a little bit on the COP and engagement. I will take us back a little bit on the convention and the framework. I don't know if that's good. Would you like me to give an overview, like a little bit of a presentation on general topics related to the convention itself and the framework, and how stakeholders can engage into that? Or would that be repetitive? I think, yeah, maybe I go ahead, but quickly, when I go through my first slides, but I thought it might be interesting to remind ourselves of the definition of biological diversity as it is written in the convention itself. So biological diversity is a term that is defined in Article 2 of the convention. And it is described as, I'm sorry, I'm going to have my camera off, I think. It's easier for me to look at my bigger screen. Thank you. So the definition of biological diversity is the variability among living organisms from all sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are part of. So we're talking about biodiversity within species, between species and ecosystems, from genes to forest and landscapes, etc. So it's a very broad term, but yeah, just to give you an idea, because I think that you all work on related issues, but if we're talking in the context of the convention, this is what we work with. Yes, and we know that biodiversity has offers many services in our daily lives. I'm not going to go through this in details, but just to say that the biodiversity is not just about species or ecosystems, it's about the services as well that they provide, from purification of air to aesthetics, spiritual value, soil fertility, decontamination, decomposition of waste, climate stabilization, etc. Just to give you a couple of examples, here at the bottom of the screen, we say that 9 out of 10 most commonly prescribed medications in the United States are plant-based. 80% of the global population uses traditional medicine, largely based on plant extracts. And the agricultural value of pollinators in the United States is estimated at 46 billion per year. I'm sorry about the numbers only coming from the US. These were available, but I will change those so that we have a bit of diversity. We know that biodiversity is threatened, that there is an urgent transformation that is needed to stop and halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030. Many studies have been demonstrating this, that biodiversity loss is really continuing at an alarming rate, and that we need to put nature on a path to recovery to address the direct drivers of biodiversity loss and the indirect drivers of biodiversity loss. And that includes action, of course, related to climate change, but also sustainable use, sustainable consumption, sustainable production. These in the previous decade, the convention was focusing a lot on conservation of species, preservation of habitats and ecosystems, etc. But with this new decade that we're working on, and until actually not just decade, but until 2050, we're focusing also on the indirect drivers. So that means opening up a lot the responsibility and the challenge for everyone in society, including like all layers of civil society, to help address all the pressure points on biodiversity. So we do need transformative change through very many different actions. Already in 1992, the global community knew that there were urgent actions that needed to be taken with regards to environment. And at the Rio Summit in 1992, that is how the Convention on Biological Diversity was born, already in 92, because of the pressures and the urgency to act, countries decided to develop this convention along with 2 other conventions, the United Nations Framework Convention to Combat Climate Change, on climate change, and the United Nations Conventions to Combat Desertification. So these are the 2 sister conventions. The third one, of course, is this one, the CBD. It entered into force in 1993, and it now has 196 parties. That's 195 countries, plus the European Union that speaks as one in most of the meetings of the convention. The convention has 3 objectives: conservation, of course, sustainable use, as we just said, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the use of genetic resources. And that 3rd objective has its own protocol, the Nagoya Protocol, focusing on access and benefit sharing. And there is also another protocol under the convention, which is the Cartagena Protocol on Biotechnologies, and it's Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol. That's a lot, but this is to give you an idea of the complexity of the COP, because the COP is not just about the convention itself. There will be the COP will be addressing also issues of the COP MOPS, which I will come back to that a little bit later. But basically, these protocols and the conventions are all discussed at the meetings of the COP, including at COP17 in Armenia. So the Secretariat, to manage this information and to organize the meetings for the governments and civil society and observer organizations, are organized by the Secretariat based in Montreal, Canada. There's about 80 staff, if I'm not mistaken, coming from all around the world. And we often work with contractors and temporary staff, which takes us to about 100 and 110 staff members. And just briefly, the mechanism around the Conference of the Parties, the Conference of the Parties being the governing body of the convention, is supported by subsidiary bodies that meet between the COPs. You probably heard of the SBI and SUBSTA meetings. It's the subsidiary body on implementation and the subsidiary body on technical and technological affairs. They all meet between the COPs, and it's also the Secretariat that prepares these meetings, organizes the documents, and provides them to the participants. So these bodies and the Secretariat, they support, I'm sorry, there was a glitch here, it's in French, appuie or support 196 parties, as I said, who are responsible for implementation at the national level. But the parties are themselves reporting to themselves, because parties are the Conference of the Parties, and they individually report to the conference, and the conference prepares guidance and direction for the next cycle to the parties themselves and to civil society and to the Secretariat. That's very brief. I'm sorry, I'm going really fast. But just to show you the line where we are, we've had all these COPs since 1994. And we're going towards Yerevan in 2026 with the 17th meeting, of course, and we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the convention in Sharm el-Sheikh in 2018. And there are many milestones at every one of these COPs. One of the big ones, of course, was the milestone of COP15 when the Global Biodiversity Framework was adopted. Very major for the convention. As I said, there was another plan in the previous decade from 2010 to 2020. It was the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity. And in 2019, 2020, the conclusions were that the targets under the strategic plan had not been reached, and that we needed to be even more ambitious for the next period all the way to 2050. So we have a roadmap going from 2022, because of the COVID, we had to postpone a little bit, but from 2022 to 2050, we have a roadmap that we can all follow with very ambitious targets, but involving whole of society and whole of government, which is quite a big difference from the previous plan. And we really hope that we can reach this vision of 2050 living in harmony with nature, where biodiversity is valued, conserved, restored, and used wisely, maintaining ecosystem services, sustaining a healthy planet, and delivering benefits that are essential for all people. So it's very much of a people-oriented plan. because people are not outside of nature, are not outside of biodiversity. People are an intrinsic part of biodiversity. So if we look at the healthy, if we look at healthy ecosystems, we also need to look at healthy people and how they each interact. And to get to that vision of 2050, the global community has set up these 2030 targets. There are actually 23 targets for transformative action, so that we can halt and reverse biodiversity loss immediately as soon as possible. We are kind of realistic, and we know that biodiversity loss will not be halted in 2030, but the emphasis on reversing biodiversity loss is very much present. How is it going to be done? I'm not going to ask you to read all of this, but this is just to show you that society, civil society, stakeholders have many hooks, many entry points in the global biodiversity framework of interest to them. Among others, I pulled out the section C, which is like at the top of the framework. It's like an umbrella section for the whole framework, for all these issues to be cross-cutting across the 23 targets. And I just put here a few of them. Intergenerational equity, I'm sure, is of interest. Formal and informal education also. The fact that this is a whole of government and whole of society approach to implementation. Many issues would be of interest. Target 22, of course, with regards to gender, Amelia talked about. And target 23 also with regards to gender, but also talking about other groups like women and girls that should be involved in the should have opportunities to contribute to the objectives of the convention and the framework. So I'm not going to stay here too long, just to highlight those considerations for implementation in the section C. Indigenous peoples, of course, are integrated throughout these objectives, different value systems, including Mother Earth, all different systems of life. The fact that the targets have to be adapted to national circumstances is not a one-size-fits-all. It has to be tailored according to priorities and capacities. And then human rights-based approach, gender, the fact that the framework is very much aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals and to the rights to development. The objectives of the convention, of course, are fully integrated, etc., so on and so forth. Health also is a very important consideration in the framework, which was not part of the previous decade in strategic plan. Coming back to the COP, because this is where we're going, and we're lucky that we're coming to work with you, and we're already working with you, but we're going to work more intensively with you all towards COP17. We're expecting, there's a typo here, I'm sorry. We're expecting, of course, at every COP that there will be, I would say, approximately 1/3 of participants who are government representatives, mostly parties to the convention, but also the few countries that are not party to the convention. We also have a lot of local staff and local staff volunteers, security staff members. It's a big part of the COP, of course. The observers, which are, I would say, maybe I don't know, to give an idea, more than 1/3 of the participants to the COPs. They include indigenous peoples and local communities, subnational and local authorities, business and industry organizations, academic and research organizations, youth, women, faith-based organizations, and many more. But this is just to give you an idea of the different categories of civil society groups that come to the COP. And probably when your organization will register its representatives, they will have to choose maybe what kind of badge they would like to use when they are at the COP, what category they would like to fall under. It doesn't make a huge difference when on site. Of course, indigenous peoples and local communities is very important, and that's a category a little bit apart from the others. But yes, the other groups, they can have access to the negotiations and they can have access to the meetings, most of the meetings, but the badge will indicate if you like to follow the meetings of the youth, for example, or the meetings of the youth, the of the women, the coordination meetings that they regularly have and that are open to all registered participants. And of course, we have the media. It is a United Nations site. You probably heard of the blue zone. So we call it the blue zone because it's UN, the color, and there will be a flag, and it's a site that is managed and controlled by the UN security staff. It's designated as such, blue zone, and it provides privileges and immunities for the meeting participants. But that is why a registration of organizations is mandatory. There's no way around it. We cannot register individuals. We have to register organizations who nominate their representatives. So to get in and to be accredited and registered in the venue, you will go through the Secretariat. There will be information provided in the coming months about how to register. It will all be clear and provided in the information note and also with complement information in the notifications that will come out. So yes, you will need to register under an organization in order to come into the website, to the site, as the physical site. The deadline for accreditation is about 8 weeks before the COP. And for accreditation is when it's a new organization that never came to a CBD meeting before. They will need to ask to be accredited as a new organization. So the CBD Secretariat will look into that with due diligence. And then after that, the new organization can nominate its participants. And that's when we say that the participants are pre-registered for the COP. And then on site, when you get your badge, you are actually registered for the COP. The steps will be explained as we go through the coming months. So as I was saying, it's one conference, but it's many meetings. In parallel, we have the 17th meeting of the convention. We have the 12th meeting of the Cartagena Protocol and the 6th meeting of the Nagoya Protocol. These meetings sometimes can be in parallel inside the venue. They can work in plenary. They can work in smaller groups which are called working groups. They're not very small, but they are not the plenary. And all these can be attended by parties and observers who can engage in formal negotiations, of course, giving priority to parties. And then when there's time, observers can intervene. When we have contact groups or smaller groups that are created to discuss specific issues, the priority is definitely given to parties. Observers can attend if there's room, if there's space. And sometimes they will be asked to contribute to the discussions, but otherwise these groups are meant to facilitate bottlenecks and to come out of situations that are becoming difficult to deal with. So we create these smaller groups, and so that's the parties that really have a say in those meetings. In the venue itself, there are many different spaces to get involved. There are thematic pavilions. There are exhibition on innovation. There's an action zone where we have hubs for stakeholder groups who manage their hubs. There's 10 of those. There are different trainings, meetings, of course, reception, awards, etc. There are also more formal events that come back regularly at every COP, the Summit of Subnational Governments and Local Authorities, there's a mistake, the Nature and Culture Summit, the Science Policy Forum, the Business and Biodiversity Forum, the Finance and Biodiversity Day. There's a youth summit organized usually outside of the venue by the host government. There are more than 200 side events, so you will be busy. And of course, as Amelia was saying, the work is not only happening during the COPs, but also between the COPs And I invite you to follow what these, to follow activities under these networks that really are closely related to the convention, the CBD Women's Caucus, of course, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, the NGO groups. One of them is the CBD Alliance. There are other coalitions of NGOs that also gather together. There are UN groups that, such as liaison groups that can come organized, not on an individual basis, but in a collective basis, and they have different meetings and events in between the COPs. The CBD Secretariat coordinates the partnership on local and subnational biodiversity and the global partnership on business and biodiversity. There are other networks that are being created, faith-based academic research. Farmers are becoming more interested as well. So this is all to say that there are many, many things to follow at the global level if you're interested. And I think you have really good partners there at the national level that are already informing you. And it's very good to know that. I'm very pleased that you are here. And I am sorry if it was a bit of a long presentation, but I hope it was useful. Thank you.
Good, yeah, Chantal. Actually, the presentation was very much to the point, well structured, and exactly like. And actually, I have a quick question, and on the COP participants on the slide 16, if I'm not mistaken, and on the COP participants, and that's about the inclusivity. Basically, the question is about ensuring the inclusivity, because we have seen issues, for example, in Colombia, in Cali. The COP was held in South America, a region very far away from the other continents like Africa or Central Asia, and the small island nations. And obviously that brings about challenges for participation in terms of costs, visa delays, etc., etc. So the question is, while CBD is committed to the inclusive participation, many CSOs, especially from the global south, and again, yes, small island development nations, states still face the barriers with the travel costs, visa-related delays, and the lack of regional representation. And we see this happening with the COP30 in Brazil. The controversies around the logistics, the accommodation issues, and there is kind of a concern that a lot of CSOs will be absent from this key climate summit. In this case, with the COP17, how the Secretariat is working to ensure that the participation opportunities in the COP and the international sessions, meetings are not limited by geography or financial constraints, like, for example, through hybrid modalities, having regional hubs, regional meetings, etc. So what's the policy and the current work at the CBD on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's a very important question. It has been, of course, the same situation for every COP, where the civil society that is closer to the venue have more capacity, of course, to go and to attend. The visa situation varies, but it's usually done in close collaboration with the CBD Secretariat and the UN security staff and the host government, of course, to try and help facilitate the work of the embassies across the world, and to make sure that participants can go to an embassy to get a visa or a temporary visa, etc., to go to the venue. So there are many, many intricacies in all of this. The Secretariat does everything possible with the host government to facilitate that aspect of things, just the visa. With regards to logistics, it also varies. Yeah, Belém is a small venue, and the hotel situation was not good. It never happened to the CBD COPs, although Cali was very, very well attended. We had over 15,000 registrations. So it was a bit of a stressful situation, but the host government managed to have the different kind of lodging facilities, all the way to family, that open their doors to receive participants, particularly the ones coming from the regions of the country, civil society coming from all the corners of Colombia. So it's a lot of discussions between the CBD Secretariat and the host government with regards to these issues. It started already. My colleagues who are actually in Yerevan, who have been there a few times already, to look at not only the conference facilities, which has to be big enough and has to have enough rooms, etc., for everyone to participate, and to avoid limiting access to the small rooms or to the discussions and negotiations. Not only the venue, but also around the venue, like the city, the facility around the city, and all of that. So it's being dealt with. If it can reassure you, this is the first time we have more than a year to prepare for a COP because the last two COPs had to be prepared in state of urgencies. In the case of COP15, the COP in Montreal was prepared in less than 6 months because it moved from China to Montreal. And same thing with COP16. The host was changed only 6 months before the COP to Colombia. And so they managed to do miracles. In this case here, we have more time. I hope we can expect a lot of organizations from civil society participating from around the world. The costs, unfortunately, the Secretariat does not provide financial support to civil society organizations, except for indigenous peoples and local communities that have their own voluntary budget, separate from other budgets for the participation of delegates. But in terms of civil society, unless it's part of a global project that will last over 2 years, that if an NGO has a project with the CBD, it will be on a long term, not just to participate at the COP. So that's what I would encourage you all to do, maybe to find partners who have projects, because I think they're more open. Donors are more open to funding projects and to funding travels. So yeah, and work on the long term to train participants on the CBD, on the framework, on biodiversity more largely, and then to train them to participate in CBD meetings. That would be my suggestion. I really hope we can have a lot of civil society representatives.
So much, dear Chantal. Yes, absolutely. It's not just the physical participation, but also participation for the sake of participation, but kind of an impactful participation. And here in Armenia, we have the luxury of having these 2 years for the preparation. Well, actually, the preparation works start like the second year. But still, the first year, I think, was well spent on the reflections after Kali, on kind of the mental groundwork. And then the government, as you well know, gears up, and the civil society and our partner organizations are gearing up and also trying to extend these partnerships with our colleagues elsewhere in the world. And that's also in terms of like inclusivity, trying to figure out the ways that the voices will be heard from those countries who might have difficulties in traveling to Armenia from places like Central America. Again, like in Cali, as you rightly mentioned, that there was a huge participation in Colombia, in Cali. What I noticed personally there is that most of the participants, like in the green zone and also in the blue zone, were from the region. Obviously, because it was cheaper to travel, affordable. And yeah, learning from that example, we want to make sure that the geographical constraints, the cost constraints do not pose any significant challenge from the partner CSOs from elsewhere in the world. And we're considering different options like the use of IT, for example, and the different modalities to make sure that we have those voices heard. So thank you very much. And I'll pass over the word to my colleague, Nune. Nune, please.
Ms. Chantal, I'm very happy that you managed to join, and we had the opportunity to listen to your insightful presentation. Thank you. And I have a small question, if it is possible, about, in your view, what is the current and potential role of Armenian civil society organization within the processes of the CBD? And how do you envision their meaningful participation and contribution, both at the national and international CBD meetings, such as Noel for the COP17? So we could say that COP17 was the most inclusive COP from all the COPs.
I love the goal. Great. I'm putting it down. It's very good. Yes, we hope to have very inclusive, very engaged civil society organizations. We will need your help for sure in coordinating at the national level. For example, with regards to the pre-registration process, if you can help us gather maximum, the lists of NGOs that will be participating and provide that in one shot, or not one shot, but to provide that in lists, that is really helpful to us. My colleagues in registration might have other suggestions to process these pre-registration requests and accreditation requests. But if you know the organizations, that's really helpful to the CBD Secretariat, so that we can do the accreditation duly and with your knowledge of civil society. And with regards to meaningful participation, I hope I saw that you already have a lot of activities, and I have a feeling that civil society will be fully prepared. So this is really helping in making it a meaningful engagement, not just, as you said, in the meetings, but on the ground. So to bring activities and results and actions that are taking place on the ground. It could be local, it could be regional, it could be national or global, but to bring this information inside the venue is what we expect. We want to know from your perspective, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the roadblocks, if you're monitoring implementation of all the signatories to the convention, and how you do that. That's really helpful. There are notifications that are coming out. I hope you're keeping an eye on them, but because there are already opportunities to provide inputs to the processes, particularly because at COP17 there will be a global review that will be looked into. The process has started. There's a notification, and you have another 2 weeks to provide inputs on how action has been taking place on specific targets and what are the challenges to these actions. And you can provide that in writing already. I guess I'm talking for the accredited organizations, because organizations have to be accredited to submit inputs. But I think that's feasible as well. There will be other ways to provide inputs to the content, to the negotiations, all the way to Yerevan, of course, coming up at the end of the month, and actually starting in a few days, the Substat 27 and SB8J1, the first meeting of the subsidiary body on Article 8J, taking place in Panama very soon. And then in February, there will be the SBI meeting taking place in Rome. And there will be more meetings in August again. So I invite you to follow the outcomes and the documents that go into these meetings and the outcomes of these meetings that will be going to COP, to be fully prepared for meaningful participation. Now, the challenge is, of course, to bring that many observer organizations, sometimes up to I don't know, in Cali, I mean, it was a record, but there were I think up to 4,000 civil society participants. They cannot all take the microphone and speak. So the best way to come prepared and to speak with one voice is to work with these networks that I mentioned, the global networks, that are very, very familiar with the convention and how it works. They will welcome Armenian organizations for sure. Amelia is approved, she's here to welcome your contributions in the CBD Women's Caucus, but also the youth is a very open membership. You can access their activities online, Global Youth Biodiversity Network, so that you prepare along with them for the negotiations. But outside of the negotiations anyway, there will be room for side events. If you want to apply for a side event, for example, my suggestion is to work together with a maximum of organizations, if possible, global organizations, because when we look at the requests, sometimes we have over 1,000 requests and we can only take 200. So we look at, the side events that are the most representative. So if you work with 2, 3, 4 partners in preparing a side event, that's a plus when when we do the selection. Another way, of course, is to engage. Oh yes, I was talking about the action zone. So it's a big zone where there's a hub for women, a hub for youth, a hub for subnational governments. Again, these hubs are managed by the networks that I mentioned, and that will be on the website also, because my suggestion is to contact them to organize events in these hubs, because the hubs will have programs ongoing in parallel with the COP for 10 to 12 days. So the youth kiosk hub, for example, maybe it's small, maybe it's 10 to 15 or 20 places or seats, but these events are amazing. These hubs are always packed, and there are daily programs. You can have a slot for 1 hour. I'm not sure how long the slots are, but you can book a slot there, and you can have your own event, a training or a presentation or a book launch or something like that. So this is a really nice space that's accessible. It's free. Whereas there are other exhibition space that are commercial that have to be booked, like for the kiosk, have to be booked, and you have to rent the equipment and all of that. They're they're not far, but they're in a different zone, and there are bigger pavilions, of course, for bigger partners. But yeah, that's another way to get involved. But yeah, I think that if you can present challenges and opportunities coming from Armenia into these spaces, this is what I think participants of the COP will expect to hear about what's going on and why Armenia is the most inclusive COP. Yeah, thank you. I hope it's useful. Maybe Olivier or Amelia can add something.
Thank you, Ms. Chantal. In Armenia, we often find ourselves doing things at the last minute, and that's exactly why we're trying to build capacity and strengthen participation now, so that our organizations are better prepared and more proactive in the international processes. Yeah, thank you very much. We truly appreciate the time and expertise shared by Ms. Astrid Schomaker, Mr. Olivier Rukundo, Ms. Chantal Robichaud, and Ms. Shushana Sirakanyan, and Ms. Amelia Arreguín. And also thank you, Armen, for helping and supporting this and moderating. Thank you to all participants. I see there are no questions now, but if there are, you can put in the chat and we will answer. If not, I would like to thank our partners, Secretariat for the CBD, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Armenia, and Ministry of the Environment for collaboration and support in making this event possible. And I'm sure that I'll look forward for the continuing dialogue and cooperation in the lead up to COP17. Yes. Please, if anyone has something to add, please, you're free. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Oliver. Please.
No, thank you. So I think Chantal was very comprehensive about sort of what is expected in terms of COP and the inclusiveness. And I think one thing that I wanted to highlight is that we do indeed have a little bit more time than previously. So this is a good opportunity to prepare and to engage. One other thing that Chantal pointed out to is really to look for the intersessional meetings, because the intersessional meetings that are coming up, SAPSTA, SBAJ, SBI, will really punctuate what happens at COP. And one of the key things that we're trying to achieve here at the Secretariat is to ensure that we have really successful meetings during this intersessional, so that the work at COP in terms of the negotiation can be as minimal as possible. That's why, in particular, the SBI process is very important, with 2 meetings coming up before the COP, and I think also the engagement of Armenia with sort of in facilitating and ensuring that these negotiations go smoothly, not only at COP but before the COP during these sessions. Is quite key. And of course, as you all know, we have usually very heavy agendas for the COP, and that's a challenge that has to be highlighted. And this is something that I wanted just to sort of share. And I know that for the SBAJ meeting, which I'm the secretary of, I know that Armenia has already sort of engaged, and there will be also a need to facilitate also a role, I think, to facilitate compromise before we get really to the COP with the outgoing presidency. And I think we have some great sort of practice there. So I would really invite you to sort of engage in that manner. But also, since this meeting is focused on the participation of other actors, let's put it this way, they do also contribute to making sure the negotiations go smoothly. And so this is just what I wanted to add. Thank you very much. And thanks for the time and the opportunity to present during this meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver, for the advices. We will follow it for sure. Thank you.
And very last point, I would like to do like a quick group photo, like a screenshot, like if everyone can smile for a second. So attention, ready, I am taking it. Fantastic, very good, thank you. And Nune, over to you to close the meeting.
Just to say some words, this webinar will be available on WiCE YouTube channel, and we hope it will serve as a resource for many others interested in strengthening the link between gender participation and biodiversity. With this COP17 in Armenia, everyone started to talk about the biodiversity and to know what is biodiversity. This is general public, and not only this is private sector also. So we are negotiating with them for our project, and this is always a capacity building for the first 40 minutes. So we are very happy that COP17 will be in Armenia, and more stakeholders are engaged, and this means that we have a hope that everything, people and nature will be in a good relationships. So yes, thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to continuing this dialogue. Thank you for your time and an important contribution.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye everyone.
Hope to see you in person soon.